Hundreds of Syrians have marched through central Damascus in a funeral procession for Mazen al-Hamada, the prominent anti-Assad activist whose body was found at Sednaya prison after the fall of the regime. Mourners turned the funeral into a call for justice, with marchers carrying posters of other Mazen detainees and chanting for Assad to be put on trial. We have more details in this report.
In Syria's third largest city, footage has been shown of inside Syria's regime's notorious political prisons. Inmates were held in dark underground cells where they face interrogations and torture, sometimes for years. A powerful moment in Syria after the toppling of the ruling regime. An American man freed from prison says he was held for the past 7 months.
It wasn't too bad. It wasn't bad. I was never beaten. The only really bad part was that I couldn't go to the bathroom when I wanted to. I was only let out 3 times a day to go to the bathroom. So that was quite the hardship.
French Foreign Ministry spokesman Christopher Lemon said that any military deployment in the suppression zone between Syria and Israel is a violation of the disengagement agreement of 1974. France calls on Israel to withdraw from this area. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met Jordan's King Abdullah on Thursday as President Joe Biden's outgoing administration pushes for an inclusive transition in neighboring Syria following the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad.
Choosing a path for Syria, but making sure the Syrian people have the opportunity to choose their path forward. I think to succeed and to emerge from the past dominated by Assad, any transitional government has to adhere to certain basic principles. It should be inclusive, non-sectarian. It's got to uphold and protect the rights of all Syrians, including minorities, including women. It has to make sure that it's preserving institutions of the state, delivering services.
In recent weeks, the IDF, led by a man, has been conducting a comprehensive assessment of the internal situation in Syria. In light of preliminary preparations for the collapse of the Assad regime, the Air Force prepared with broad attack plan to destroy advanced military capabilities on Syrian territory, including strategic weapons. The Syrian Air Force is one of the strongest in the Middle East, and hitting it is a significant achievement for the Air Force's supremacy in the region. The atrocities of the Assad regime have become more visible. Relatives are currently searching for their family members who were imprisoned during the years under Assad. After Bashar al-Assad ran away and the rebels took control of the country, many Syrians have continued to find their relatives who were also imprisoned. More recently, journalists were given access to the Assad family home in an upscale neighborhood of Damascus. Inside were mementos abandoned in a hurry, present the children had made after school, and holiday photographs, and also countless boxes of jewelry, antiques, and designer goods.
Global Affairs analyst Kunle Falowo joins me now to discuss the end of the Assad regime. Good to have you join us on World Now. 5 days ago, the world witnessed the fall of the Assad regime. What do you make of the events that have followed in Syria?
Thanks for having me. So definitely that is a cause for celebration and jubilation in Syria and entirely the well-wishers in the Middle East. We need to understand that this has been an oppressive regime. It's been the Assad dynasty since about 50 years, good solid 5 decades of oppressive rule and authoritarian rule by the regime dynasty, the Assad dynasty, since 1971. So this is remarkable, and the most important topic right now is reconstruction.
But then, yes, celebration might be happening now, but what is the guarantee? What is the assurance that it's actually a new lease of life for Syrians?
That's a very tricky question. Well, the bone of contention here is to make sure that we wouldn't have a repetition of what led to the ouster of Bashar al-Assad, and that would be protection, guaranteeing protection of religious and ethnic minorities. Now, we know that there is a crisis, or there's some troubles or misunderstanding or hatred between the Shiite and the Sunni Muslims, and and generally the ethnic minorities in Syria. Most importantly, guaranteeing that this doesn't happen again and there is no discrimination whatsoever in Syria, to make sure that they run an all-inclusive government, whatever form of government they choose to select or to choose to govern themselves. It's very fundamental that we have equity and protection of minorities across the board.
All right, and let's talk about the Middle East now. The region has been embroiled in, it just seems like a never-ending cycle of conflict, as it were. How do we achieve peace in this very critical region?
Well, most importantly, that's a boiling point, and it's a trigger point for every other country, most especially the first world countries, and then with the incidents going on in Syria right now, there is a G7 meeting that's supposed to be holding today to chart a way forward for the people of Syria, and aside from that, the other countries in the Middle East are trying to chart a way forward, and this feat or victory or success, however you want to put it, just didn't happen, just like that. It took a collaborative effort by other countries, like Lebanon, for example, played a very instrumental role in making sure that Assad regime was ousted, and most importantly, coming together to make sure that things of this don't happen again, and having international pressure on bad actors in the Middle East, the ones that harbor criminals and harbor jihadists and folks that are considered, or organizations that are considered to be harming people or not respecting the fundamental human rights of other people because of their differences. So long that we're able to make sure that they don't get the support that they need and fish them out, that will be a great success across the board. But this is not something that happens overnight. It's a concerted effort and a continuous effort until success is finally achieved.
But how strongly and how quickly do you see the world uniting around Syrians in their call for justice? Because, for instance, they are marching around the Damascus city and other parts of the country. They are calling for justice for missing detainees. They are calling also for Assad to actually be put on trial. But we do know that he is seeking refuge in Russia. So do you actually see him and others who are being, accused, in what has happened in Syria, being dealt with really as the call is?
Good point. So Assad apparently tricked all of his entourage and his militia and his military force, and didn't even tell them that he was leaving Syria this week. He took a helicopter or airplane, and as we speak right now, Bashar al-Assad is in Russia seeking refuge with 3 of his kids and his wife. So he's currently in Russia. So, and I just mentioned about the getting rid of the bad actors and putting them back to form. Most importantly, we know that there is a mounting pressure on the Assad regime, and most importantly, now that we have him in seeking asylum in Russia, there will be other negotiations between the G7 countries, and particularly some of the mediators in the Middle East, to have conversation with Putin, who is harboring a suspected or an alleged criminal for war crimes. you know,
All
so
right, then.
that will be another conversation that will happen. But let's just bask in the victory and honor that he's been ousted finally, and freedom and normalcy can return to the people of Syria.
All right. Global Affairs analyst Kunle Falawo, thank you so much for joining us on World Now.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.